This Spirit is coming out awesome. The only thing I really hate is the handlebar on this bike. It's just hideous. It's just an old school kind of a buckhorn looking thing, so we got to get rid of it. So this video is going to show you how to do it, and follow it closely because there's a lot of little secrets that we found over the years that makes it much easier, and you won't fight it so much. Now the main thing that we've found is that people don't tighten the clamps properly. These clamps right here. So I did this little sketch for you. What I'm saying here is, okay, you've got to have the same gap on this side and this side. See the gap between the clamp and the bottom? If you get it crooked like this, so you tighten this side first and it touches, then you've lost all your clamping ability. So make sure when you do the clamps that you do it this way with a little gap, both sides. I'll follow that later. And then the other thing I want to make sure you do is put 2 towels on your tank. It's really important that you protect that tank because when you're working on this bike, things are going to fall, tools, the bar will swivel back. So put those towels on there and let's get going. To remove your mirrors, just loosen this bolt right here, and then the mirror just unscrews. Next, we want to unplug both sides of our, these are the switch housing wiring. Just go ahead and pull those out just like that. There's on both sides. And then you can go ahead and snip these cable ties so that your wires are free. Next, we want to remove these little caps that cover the Allen screws. Just put a little screwdriver or something in there and pry those loose. We need to remove this grip on this side. So what I did, I just cut it with a knife like this. Oh, and then before I did that, I pried the little end cap off. Just pry that off with some pliers. It'll pop right off there. And then we'll slide this off. Mine comes off easy because I've done it before, but yours will be a little tough because it has glue in it. Now we've removed the master cylinder and the clutch lever. Just remove these 2 Allen screws. This clamp comes right off. And then make sure you put these screws back in just loosely after you get it off, and you won't lose them along with this clamp. And then you can just hang this down alongside your bike and do the same thing with the clutch lever. There's 2 screws that hold this clamshell switch housing together. One here and one on the back side. What I want you to do is just back those off until they come out and then just screw them in like one turn. Do that to both sides. That way the will split apart, but it won't come apart and you lose all your cable and everything won't come loose from the throttle tube. So if you do that and you can pry it apart, that should slide off there a little bit and come off the pinhole, and you'll see that in a little bit here. I just want you to loosen that, but it won't come off the bar yet, but make it so it just slides like that. And then on this side, we want to do the same thing. Leave the other side in one turn, but on this side we'll probably have to remove that screw because this one has to open up just a little bit more in order for it to slide past that pinhole. Okay, I've taken the clamps off the handlebar and let it droop down. Be careful, don't let it fall. And now you can go ahead and slide your switch housing off this side and your throttle tube off that side. Now go ahead and lay your new drag bar on a towel with the bare side to the right, and the holes will be on the bottom side. There's the holes that we drill for you. That's for the switch housings. Lay that like that, and then what we want to do, we want to just take a tape measure and go from both sides. What do I do? I just looks like I did about 19 inches. I put a mark there, and then I did the same thing on the other side. I put a mark about 19 inches. That left 2 marks, and then I just put a little bit of tape in between the 2. Or on your handlebar, you'll have the flat black one, so the pencil marks will show up better. That'll be the center of the bar. Okay, it's okay to put just a little teeny bit of real light oil on this side. Don't put much at all because if it leaks down, it could loosen your grip. So just a little teeny light coating will be fine. Okay, then what I'm going to do, I'm going to slide the throttle tube over this end. Now we'll go ahead and slide the switch housing on the other end. Okay, I've got both throttle or switch housing end and throttle tube on. Now we can go ahead and lift that up and bolt that to the handlebar, to the clamps. Now what we want to do is we want to tilt the bar up on the ends quite a ways. Let's just go extreme on it for now, because when these turn all the way, we don't want these switch housings to hit the tank. So angle it up and then go ahead and just temporarily tighten these clamps. Make it centered with your tape or your marks. Now we can go ahead and slide the throttle tube and the clutch switch housing side up over. You'll feel the holes as it pops in. The little pin that pops in there, and then the clamps will close all the way. So go ahead and do that, and then if you've done it correctly, when these are a little loose, this will swivel, but you'll feel it's in the holes. You can leave those a little bit loose for now, but slide them up until the pins pop in the holes on both sides. Let's go ahead and install the clutch lever now. You can go ahead and make sure that the wiring's on this side, and you can leave this a little bit loose. And then the choke cable's on this side and the clutch cable's on this side. That way they won't cross each other. You can leave that a little bit loose for now. Now on the brake side of the bike, we're going to have to do a couple of things here to make some changes so that this hose goes up instead of down. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and loosen these little knurled knobs on here on the throttle so that they rotate. That way it'll kind of rotate out of the way to get to this bolt on the master cylinder. So go ahead and mount your brake lever and your master cylinder. Go ahead and snug this up pretty good, because what we're gonna have to loosen this, but be really careful. We're gonna follow this instruction, because we don't want to loosen it too much or brake fluid will come out. Okay, if you notice, I've put a separate rag under this brake cable just in case it leaks a little bit of fluid. And then go ahead and grab a 12mm box end wrench. 12mm or a socket would work too. And then a little hammer. This is kind of an ugly thing, but it works good. Now what we're going to do, we're going to tap on this wrench, tap on it, so we can loosen this. If you push down, I'm afraid you might push it down and it releases and then it lets some brake fluid out. So what I do, I put it on there and I just tap on it until that comes loose and I can feel it. I'll show you what I'm doing here. Okay, if you'll notice, it loosened up, and then what I did, I tightened it just a little bit, because we're going to have to take this off and rotate this around. And if that's not loose ahead of time, it's hard to hold this to get enough pressure to release this. So snug it up just a little bit so that keeps the brake fluid in there, and then we'll take this off again. Okay, now we're going to loosen this up and very carefully just rotate this around. It'll only go so far, and then this will probably hit the housing here. So I'm going to show you how I do this. And you got to be really careful, just kind of doing increments so that as you rotate this, it doesn't loosen the bolt too much. Okay, there, that's as far as that'll go. It'll probably hit the housing here. That should be far enough though, because when that's mounted on the bike, it should look nice and clear the handlebar. So go ahead and snug this up as best you can while it's in your hand here, and then we'll tighten this once it's on the bike. I noticed a little teeny bit of brake fluid came out, so I just went ahead and wiped that off. If just a little teeny bit comes out, I don't think it'll affect your brake much. If it gets too spongy, you may have to bleed the system, but hopefully just a teeny bit or nothing came out, so you should be okay. Okay, then let's go ahead and mount this on there. You can just leave it a little bit loose, and we're going to rotate the handlebar to where we like the position. Watch this closely too, because we don't want that switch housing on the left side to hit the gas tank when you turn all the way. Before we angle the bar, go ahead and loosen this nut on this cable, on the choke cable, so we can rotate freely like this. And then go ahead and plug all your both connectors on both sides on your switch housings. That way they're kind of out of the way. Now we're going to go ahead and lower this bar. We've got to be real careful. As you lower the bar down into place, and just sit on the bike and be really careful on this, but carefully turn the bar this way. Now the bar will feel a little mushy until you tighten up the clamps all the way. But just rotate the bar until this doesn't hit the tank here. You don't want this to hit on, this is the critical side. Make sure that you've got a little bit of clearance there. I'd allow at least a ½ an inch or more. And then you can go ahead and snug the bar up. Just make sure, and turn both sides. Make sure that both sides don't come too close. That's why you want this clutch, or this choke wire loose too, so it'll rotate out of the way. So go ahead and do that, and then make sure when you tighten these up, we pay attention to that note. Make sure there's a little gap on both sides. There's not much of a gap on these clamps, so be really careful and go back and forth on all 4 bolts as you tighten them. Make sure you get them good and snug. It looks like my bar is just a little bit above level to the ground when I sit on the bike. You don't want the bar sticking up too much or it'll look stupid. Okay, we're going to go ahead and tighten everything up now. So sit on the bike and make sure that your both clutch and brake lever are in the position that you like, up and down wise. And then when you tighten these up, don't get too carried away. They're just aluminum threads. And the same as the handlebar clamps, make sure you have the same gap, front, top and bottom. That's really important. That way you're getting good pressure without over tightening these, because you don't want to strip them out. And then tighten your switch housings, the screws on the bottom. And then do both sides. And then you'll notice on this side, I left the wrench sitting, sticking up there. I'm going to run over here and show you. This is really important. Remember the brake hose. We're going to go ahead and tighten that up now. Make sure you tighten that. You don't want brake fluid leaking out all over your gas tank, because brake fluid will eat paint. So make sure you tighten this up and wipe any residue of brake fluid off the bolt here. And then check your brake and make sure it feels nice and tight, not too spongy. And I think we're just about done here. I'm going to go ahead and show you how to wrap this up. Now, after you get everything tightened up, make sure you check your throttle. Make sure it snaps back. If it doesn't snap back or it's a little tight, you may want to loosen your adjuster here, right here. Just loosen those up all the way, give it a lot of play, and then readjust it. Sometimes that'll kind of help with the snap back. This is important that snaps back nice and freely. And then make sure there's a little bit of free play in there when you do the adjustment. Same thing with the clutch. Make sure there's just a little bit of free play in your clutch. Too much free play and they'll get hard to shift and hard on the transmission, but not enough play and it's kind of the opposite. It won't it'll be hard to pull, and it won't disengage all the way. So a little bit of free play on both. And then you'll notice I wire tied the cables up here. And then again, like I say, make sure you snug everything up, and I think we're just about finished. And there you have it. The bar is finished. I went ahead and put the Biltwell natural grips on this one. The throttle side went on really well. Just follow our written instructions. Make sure you put plenty of WD-40 down on the bottom of the grip. On this side, I had a heck of a time getting it on there, because I don't think I got enough WD-40 down on the bottom of the grip down in here. So make sure you get it all the way down in the tube and then on the bar itself and the throttle tube when you slide them on. But I was able to work it on there just by going like this with my fingers on both sides. It just took a while. And there you have it. Oh, and one last thing, if you do get our low profile mirrors and the angle isn't quite right, you may have to angle your throttle or your brake and clutch lever just a little bit in order for the mirror to adjust properly.